Hey guys, welcome to day 7. I am currently sitting on the floor because this is what my apartment looks like right now. I'm trying to build some new furniture and it just looks like a mess. So I'm sitting on the floor and in the spot where that desk is supposed to be. And then when that desk gets built and then I build the coffee table, then all my stuff can go back to normal, and hoping to have that done by tomorrow or the next day. We will see. That being said, I don't have any shout outs today. Everybody's doing a great job. I'm getting lots of stuff on your OneNote. Just remember that for your OneNote, you can go in, and I don't know if I can show you this or not on here. So there's this content library, remember. Can you see that? I don't even know if you can see that or not. Well, anyways, this over here, this content library, you can go down to where it says COVID-19 and you can copy and paste into your own folders. So like if Addison doesn't have it in her folder, she can go up to there and copy and drag it over to her folder. Okay, so keep that in mind. I don't know what else to tell you other than just keep waiting for it to upload. Okay. Okay, let's get into this agenda. So this is day 7. So the thought of the day is, if you think you are too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito. The Dalai Lama said that, and I'm pretty sure he's right. Sleeping with a mosquito would be awfully uncomfortable, and it's a tiny itty bitty little bug, right? Yep. Okay. Oh, I do have a shout out on here. My shout out goes to Kaylin Krogman for sending me her summaries, her journals, her math. Everything has been sent, and she has gotten some feedback, and she's set a goal for herself to become more organized. So, good for you. Okay. Stay tuned for a new date as to when they will start. We will start new material. The thing about new material right now is that we have to make sure that everybody has access to it. Otherwise, we're just going to be leaving people behind, and we can't do that. So, get your math assignments done. This is such a perfect time for you to go back and repolish some of those tools. Factor puzzles, we haven't done factor puzzles in forever, but they're coming back. When we go back to school, Unit 5 and 6, we're going to need some of those ratios, and we're going to be graphing some different things. So I want you to use this time right now to really, really buff up on that math. Decomposing shapes, you're going to need that too. So just practice. Just keep practicing. These are difficult skills. I put that on here. So I understand that. I know that these are difficult skills, and it's hard to go back. And I mean, we've been pulling things from 3rd grade and 4th grade all year long, and it's tough. I get it. It's tough. So if you need help, you need to reach out either to parents or to me, or Miss Williams is available on the YouTube. So we have resources for you, okay? So I put in a listening section of this, and I want you to watch the TED Talk. It's on how to speak to people so that they want to listen. It's a really good little bit on how to effectively communicate with people. Not even just adults, but like other siblings, friends, coworkers when you get older. It's good to know, and just keep one thing that sticks with you, okay? I did assign 5 questions into the ELA notebook, and I would really, really like I would like to read what you guys have to say about that. Okay, reading. Yep, just keep reading your book. Send me your summaries. I've only got a couple of you sending summaries. Remember, do not share the document with me. It gets lost. I don't know how to navigate it. Sometimes it makes me log in and relog, and then it gets lost in folders, and it's confusing. So if you could just send it through the email with an attachment, so go to attach and then scroll down to browse, and then you can find where the document is and just clip it to your email so that I can just go in and go, oh, this person There it is, open. Okay, it just makes things easier for us. Okay, science. You probably already did this, but just in case you did not, take a look at that pandemic video. It's really, really fascinating about how pandemics get started and what to do. So social studies, everything is the same except for this. I changed the field trip, the virtual field trips to Smithsonian National Museum. I've actually been to that museum. It's in Washington, D.C., and it is fascinating. And there are so many different parts. There's history, and there's like a whole NASA section, and there's a whole bunch of different stuff. So go on, just take a look through it. Like, read the things and see what you can learn from there, okay? Physical activity, I put dance to your favorite song today. Charlie and I did a little dance to Whitney Houston's I Want to Dance with Somebody. Are you shocked? No, of course not. But we had a good time with that earlier this morning, and that's what made me think, maybe my students would like to do that too. Okay. And then also, as always, check out the CNN 10 page, News for Kids. As usual, just let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to read through. That just kind of shot out at me. I'm going to go through a few pages today. We're not going to read a whole chapter, but okay, here we go. Mama made me a cap out of my first coon hide. I was as proud of it as Papa would have been if someone had given him a dozen Missouri mules. Mama said afterwards that she wished she hadn't made it for me because in some way wearing the cap must have affected my mind. I went coon crazy. I was out after the ringtails every night. About the only time I didn't go hunting was when the weather was bad, and even then, Mama all but had to hog tie me. What wonderful nights they were, running like a deer through the thick timber of the bottoms, tearing my way through the sands of wild cane, climbing up the drifts, and jumping logs, running, screaming, and yelling, "Woo-wee! Get him, boy, get him!" following the voices of my little hounds. It wasn't too hard for a smart old coon to fool old Dan, but there were none that prowled the riverbanks that could fool my little Ann. As Grandpa had predicted, the price of coon skins jumped sky high. A good-sized hide was worth from $4 to $10, depending on the grade and quality. I kept the side of our smokehouse plastered with hides. Of course, I would spread them out a little to cover more space. I always stretched them onto the side facing the road, never on the backside. I wanted everyone in the country to see them. The money earned from my furs was turned over to my father. I didn't care about it. I had what I wanted, my dogs. I supposed that Papa was saving it for something because I never saw anything new turn up around our house. But like any young boy, I wasn't bothered by it, and I asked no questions. My whole life was wrapped up in these dogs. Everywhere I went, they went along. There was only one place I didn't want to go with. I didn't want them to go with me, and that was to Grandpa's store. Other dogs were always there, and it seemed as if they all wanted to jump on old Dan. It got so about the only time I went to see my grandfather was when I had a bundle of fur to take to the store. This is always a problem. In every way I would try to slip away from the dogs. Sometimes I swore that they could read my mind. It made no difference what I tried. I couldn't fool them. One time I was sure I had outsmarted them. The day before I was to make one of my trips, I took my furs out to the barn and hid them. The next morning I hung around the house for a while, and then nonchalantly whistled my way out to the barn. I climbed up in the loft, peeked through the crack, and I could see them lying in the front of their dog houses. They weren't even looking my way. Taking my furs, I sneaked out through the back door, and walking like a tomcat, I made it to the timber, and climbed a small dogwood tree and looked back. They were still there and didn't seem to know what I'd done. Feeling just about as smart as Sherlock Holmes, I headed for the store. I was walking along, singing my lungs out, and they came tearing out of the underbrush, wiggling and twisting, and tickled to death to be with me. At first, I was mad
But one look at dancing little Ann and all was forgiven. I sat down on my bundle of furs and laughed till it hurt all over. I could scold them a little, but I could no more have whipped one of them than I could have kissed a girl. After After all, a boy just doesn't whip his dogs. Grandpa always counted my furs carefully and marked something down on a piece of paper. I'd never seen him do that with other hunters, and it got the best of my curiosity. One day while he was writing, I asked him, "Why do you do that, Grandpa?" He looked over at me and over his glasses and said kind of sharp, "Never mind, I have my reasons." When Grandpa talked to me like that, I didn't push things any further. Besides, it didn't make any difference to me if he had marked it on a piece of paper in the store. I always managed to make my trips on Saturdays, as that was coon hunters' day. I didn't have to stand around or on the outside of the circle anymore and listen to the coon hunters. I'd get right up in the middle and say my piece to the rest of them. I didn't have to tell any whoppers, for some of the things my dogs did were almost unbelievable now. Oh, I guess I did make things a little bigger than they actually were, but I never did figure a coon hunter told honest to goodness lies. He just kind of stretched things out a little. I could hold those coon hunters spellbound with some of the hunting tales. Grandpa would never say anything while I was telling my stories. He just puttered around the store with a silly little grin on his face. Once in a while, when I got too far off the beaten path, he would come round and cram a bar of soap in my pocket. My face would get all red. I'd cut my story short and fly out the door and head home. Coon hunters were always kidding me about my dogs. Some of the remarks I heard made me fighting mad. "I never saw a hound so small, but I guess they are hounds. At least they look like it. I don't believe little Ann is half as smart as he says she is. She's so little those old raccoons think she's a rabbit. I bet she sneaks right up on them and then realizes she's a dog. Some of these nights a big old coon is going to carry her off into the den and raise some little coon puppies." I always took their kidding with a smile on my face, but it made my blood boil like the water in Mama's tea kettle. I had one way of shutting them up. "Let's all go to the store," I'd say, "and see who has the most hides in there." It was true that my dogs were small, especially little Ann. She could walk under an ordinary hound. In fact, she was a regular midget. If it had not been for her long ears, no one would have even known that she was a hound. Her actions weren't those of a hunting hound. She was constantly playing. She would play with our chickens and young calves with a piece of paper or a corn cob. What my little girl lacked in size, she made up for in sweetness. She could make friends with a tomcat. Old Dan was just the opposite. He strutted around with a belligerent and tough attitude. Although he wasn't a tall dog, he was heavy. His body was long and his chest broad and thick. His legs were short, big, and solid. The muscles in his body were hard and knotty. When he walked, they would twist and jerk under his skin. He was a friendly dog. There were no strangers to him. He loved everybody. Yet he was a strange dog. He would not hunt with another hound other than little Ann and another hunter, not even my father. The strangest thing about old Dan was that he would not hunt even with me unless little Ann was there with him. I found this out the first night I tried. Little Ann had cut the pad of her right foot on a sharp, jagged flint rock. It was a nasty cut. I made a little boot of leather and put it in her wounded foot. To keep her from following me, I locked her in the corn crib. 2 nights later, I decided to take old Dan hunting for a while. He followed me down to the river and disappeared into the thick timber. I waited and waited for him to strike a trail. Nothing happened. After about 2 hours, I called to him. He didn't come. I called and called. Disgusted, I gave up and went home. Coming up through the barn lot, I saw him rolled up in a ball on the ground in front of the corn crib. I immediately understood. I walked over and opened the door. He jumped up in the crib, smelled little Ann's foot, twisted around in the shucks, and lay down beside her. As he looked at me, I read the message on his friendly gray eyes. You could have done this a long time ago. I never did know if little Ann would hunt by myself or not, by herself or not. I'm not sure she would have, for she was a smart and understanding dog, but I never tried to find out. Little Ann was my sister's pet. They rubbed her and scratched her and petted her. They would take her down to the creek and give her baths. She loved it all. If Mama wanted a chicken caught, she would call little Ann. She would run the chicken down and hold it with her paws until Mama came. Not one feather would be harmed. Mama tried old Dan once before she got the chicken. There wasn't much left of the feathers. By some twist of nature, little Ann was destined to go through life without being a mother. Perhaps it was because she was stunted in growth, or maybe because she was the runt of the large litter. That may have had something to do with it. During the first season, November through February, I was given complete freedom from work. Many times when I came home, the sun was high in the sky. After each hunt, I always took care of my dogs. The flint rocks and saw briars were hard on their feet. With a bottle of peroxide and a can of salve, I would doctor their wounds. I never knew what to expect from old Dan. I never saw a coonhound so determined or one that could get into so many predicaments. More than one time, it would have been the death of him if it hadn't been for smart little Ann. All right, I'm going to stop there. So I will read some more to you tomorrow. Look for a new video and a new set of lesson plans. Week 2 is almost in the books, guys. Talk to you later.